I hate Mac Jones so much.
I personally think it's hilarious that you have Captain America's shield and Spider-Man right behind you.
If you agree with us, let us know, and we'll glaze you like you glaze us.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Two Down Territory. I am Jonathan, joined alongside Adam, live from the pits of hell. If you can see him visually, he is sunburnt.
The lighting is weird. There's like a Spider-Man behind me. I'm on vacation, on a family vacation, and that doesn't stop the show, but it might change our production quality a bit. But that doesn't matter.
That's
We're
how
still
well
here to
this
talk
podcast
ball.
pays us, Adam. You're
Exactly.
flying out.
We're dedicated to the grind. Yeah, to see the premier NFL team in Orlando. But anyway, lots to talk about. I feel like, personally for us, week 2 of the 2025 NFL season couldn't have gone worse. But as a general NFL fan, lots of really entertaining games.
Well, what's funny is that in no way is it good for either of us, but you won and feel worse, and we lost, and I actually feel a little bit better.
The thing is that pretty much as soon as the news broke today that Joe Burrow would be out for 3 months, pretty much, I had a choice. I could either do what generations of Bengals fans have done and be sad, or I could be optimistic and understand that this is going to create an incredible storyline for the 2025 Bengals. And I think we'll talk about it a lot in this episode. I think the first thing we need to talk about, and this is just perfectly transitioning into this, is just all the injuries, right? The 3 big quarterbacks who have been injured, right? Obviously, Joe Burrow tore turf toe, tore his ligaments in his toes, which is so ridiculous.
Thanks for your professional medical opinion there.
As a medical professional myself, tore those ligaments in his toes, gonna need surgery. I think Jaden Daniels is questionable for week 1. JJ McCarthy has been ruled out, which is interesting. It's going to be a Jake Browning, Carson Wentz matchup, week 3 of the NFL season. Jalen Johnson is out for the season. Best corner, pretty much the best player on the Bears, potentially out for the season. So,
and obviously this happened. The news broke rather shockingly, but we weren't able to interact with it because obviously we record on the Monday after the games. But Brock Purdy is out for at least probably a month, it seems. Now that would have been from last, so he's probably out at least another 3 games.
Mm-hmm. Dude, I hate Mac Jones so much.
Well, I know
hate
you
that
have
his
this
first game
opinion.
back, he was
See,
playing the
as
Saints.
someone who has some Patriot fan friends, I do get a little bit of sick glee watching Mac Jones succeed elsewhere.
Be successful, yeah.
But that and it's not because they hated Mac Jones and want him out of town. It's that they truly believed that his failures were because of the organization's failures. And so, which is probably not true.
It can be both, by the way.
Yes, it can.
Like, these are not mutually exclusive. Like, generally, teams suck for a myriad of reasons. Quarterback and, GMing by your head coach.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
That can generally lead to, 3-win seasons eventually.
And we don't have to transition to this right away, but that will actually be the main topic of today's show, which is giving one major problem for every team in the NFL. And some of these could be much more small scale problems. Some of them could be optimistic. Some of them could be long-term organizational problems. So
yeah,
we're going to be looking at everyone.
And honestly, I feel like a lot of the news that we would talk about could just come up whenever we're discussing these issues. So I'm
Yeah.
fine with jumping right into it. Before we do, I do want to clarify, similar to our offseason grading, a lot of these are based on, I guess you could say, like, a lot of teams have a lot of problems. And so for me, I looked at where this team's ceiling is to really determine, like, what is the main issue. Some of them are easy, some of them is difficult because either they're good or because they're so bad, it's hard to pick one. But
Yes.
I'm excited to see. I just give a little brief overview of our thoughts on all of the teams after most of the teams after week 2. Obviously, we still have the Chargers and Raiders game later tonight. Right now, the Buccaneers are beating the Houston Texans, so
Yeah.
we'll see how those games play out. But I still think we can get a general idea.
Which I think a best way to encapsulate that when we talk about the problems for these teams is that I'm taking the East and West divisions, Adam's taking the North and South, and a lot of these are probably based off of what our opinion on this team was, and we're either seeing things that are confirming what we believed or are negating what we believed about a team that we were optimistic about. So
Yeah.
you can go ahead and kick us off, Adam. Pick whichever division you like.
Yeah, I'll start off with the AFC North. Let's start off with an interesting one. Let's start off with the Ravens.
Hmm.
The Ravens are a really interesting team because this is obviously the extreme end example of a team that's really successful and really good. But I think that if there was one problem that I would point to, uh, you have to look at it assuming like a playoff berth, just because that's where they're at as an organization.
Yes.
And, obviously the big one is Lamar Jackson's play. But I don't want to be too cliche. And I think included within that is really just the concept of giving up big leads. Obviously, we saw that in the Bills game, but we've also seen it historically with the Ravens, specifically with John Harbaugh. And it's just this philosophy that at the end of the game, I'm going to play conservatively and trust the defense, which is a traditional philosophy that makes sense in some situations, but you have to consider where your best players are. And I think that sometimes John Harbaugh sticks to the traditional perspective of what should be done, right? It's the end of the game. You need a first down in order to end it, to seal the game for your team. You want to be as conservative as possible.
If I
But
may, because I actually think you just said something there that I never really put together, but I think is interesting. When we think of being conservative at the end of a game or protecting a lead, we think about it in terms of running the ball, running out the
yeah,
clock. What being conservative should be is not taking risks. And why that is used to be correlated with running the football is typically who was the best player on your offense, your running back. But if
yeah.
you have a roster where your best player on the field is your two-time MVP quarterback, maybe the ball should go through him.
Right. And in my mind, it really is one of those situations where if you just follow the line of thinking to its logical end, there's one central question, which is who do you trust more, your defense or your two-time MVP? I don't think coaches consider it like that. I don't think that that's the question they're asking. And the reason I'm saying there is because this is a commonly, Zach Taylor does it all the time, and it drives me insane,
Yeah.
where it's like, sure, you run the ball 3 times in a really predictable manner, and yeah, like chances are you're not going to get the turnover. But also, like, who do you trust the ball with more? Like, who do you want to win you the game? And in my mind, the clear and obvious answer, especially for teams like the Ravens, is Lamar Jackson. And so, obviously, Lamar Jackson's play has to get better in the playoffs. We know that. I think that there's also, though, this underlying issue that needs to be solved by the time the playoffs come so that we don't see a game like week 1 against the Bills.
Yeah, fair. Do we want to go back and forth team by team?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So
So why don't you go ahead and give one of your teams?
my division that I will start with overall is the AFC East. And I will start at a place that's pretty easy because it confirmed my bias coming into the season, which is the Miami Dolphins. Now, here's the problem though. It's actually, that secondary is bad. And to be clear, in terms of talent, it is the worst unit as compared to the front line. That being said, the secondary has actually not even really had a chance because of how bad they've actually been against the run. I mean,
Yeah.
it makes it so a already poor secondary has to compensate even more. They have to inch
Uh-huh.
up. They have to creep up. And so I really think that almost this is kind of two answers here. That's the blatant one in terms of the football. I think the second level here is that, um, and I don't want to be that person that's calling for somebody's head or anything like that. And I get that I could be reading into things, but I think it should be a pretty commonly held opinion that Mike McDaniels has lost control of that team. I don't
Yeah.
see how
I mean,
you.
that was, we were talking about that before the season started.
Yeah, and then after week 1, they hold a players-only meeting, and
Yeah.
he's like, every press conference he gives is objectively hilarious and should be preserved
The
forever.
last one was hysterical, but also like,
No, I mean, he's legit, like, he's I mean, he reminds me of the Boston Celtics head coach. Oh my
Joe
goodness.
Mazzulla.
Joe
Yeah.
Mazzulla, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm not in NBA mode. He reminds me of
No,
Joe
you're good.
Mazzulla, except that Joe Mazzulla only wins. If you
And the quotes are like cold, like in the context of winning, it's like, dang, dude, that was deep. Where it's like when you're coming off like a terrible loss and you're saying things like, well, we lost and they won and we got to win. So when they lose, we lose. And when we win, we win. It's like, that is not
I mean,
inspiring.
no, and it's also a level too where, again, I almost don't know what you do as an organization. I think probably the majority of players with any talent on that roster are probably thinking about where they want to be next season.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. No,
that's the
I think, I
Dolphins.
think, I think the general consensus among Dolphins fans is just like, sell off your assets, gain as many picks as you can,
I
clear the
mean,
cap
some,
space.
but here's the thing, and this is for us, this is not a quick turn. We've seen this coming this entire offseason, but there are some people, commentators that have legitimate audiences where they've been talking about the Dolphins as this potentially sneaky wild card team. And I think after already 2 weeks that evaporates. And so how long is it before the discussion turns to, should the Dolphins be aiming for picking a quarterback in the first round next year? Like, at what point does the discussion turn to that? Because I think it could turn rather quickly.
Well, I think that it's one of those situations where you kind of said it early in the offseason. It's crazy how quickly we were on this.
Yeah.
Because one of the points that you made early in the offseason, which is still true to this day, is that the best you're going to get from Tua is in a Mike McDaniel scheme.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, how do you, like, where do you go from there? So that's tough. It's a tough situation overall.
That's the Miami Dolphins. Get ready for it for the next 15
Like,
games.
yeah. All right. Next, I'll talk about the Steelers. Actually, similarly to the Dolphins, the biggest issue that they have is their run defense. Just getting into the numbers, they're 28th in the NFL in terms of rushing yards allowed with 299. They let up 4.4 yards per carry, and they've let up 4 touchdowns, which I think is tied for last. Either way, it's really interesting because I've never seen a team that has the tools to be so successful against the pass, but fail so significantly in the first 2 weeks of the season against the run. It's the reason why the Jets offense was successful. It's the reason why they lost against Seattle and Kenneth Walker looked really good. And, there's looking back, I like, this is one of those situations where like it makes sense that the Jets were able to score so many points. It makes sense that they lost to the Seahawks
Mm-hmm.
because these are two teams that should be able to do that against really any average defense. And the Steelers have been less than average,
Yes.
to put it really politely. And the biggest issue that this creates is that, well, one, um, it puts a lot of pressure on a secondary that is very talented, but it's one of those things where it's like if you're creating an advantage with the talent within your secondary, and teams can immediately mitigate that advantage through a successful run game, then you're taking away an advantage that I guess like the Steelers can't afford to take away an advantage like that because they don't have enough of them as a team. And
Yes.
so it's really it's gonna be really, really difficult for that defense as a whole if they can't figure out how to stop the run. And it's really perplexing because they, like, last year they had arguably the best pass rush within the NFL in terms of like a unit. And the pieces that they added to the secondary should lead to a better overall season. And yet none of that really matters if they can't stop the run.
Yeah.
So that's the Steelers.
My next team is the New England Patriots, and this is a very niche one, and it would have been very easy to say the offensive line, and that probably actually is the case, but I did want to note something, which is special teams errors. In their last game, they snuck away with the win against the Dolphins, but they missed 2 PATs and they gave up a punt return touchdown. And for a team like this, as a whole, and the kicking errors concern me far more than anything else.
Yeah.
This is not a team that is talented enough that has the margin of error to lose out on 2 points per game or a missed field goal here and there. Like, they don't have the margin of error to be able to do that. And so I'm noting this specifically because my vision for this team was very narrow. It was basically either 8-9 or 9-8. That 9-8 being enough in the models that I ran, so to speak, to actually sneak in to the wild card, to the 7 seed, a 9-8 AFC playoff team. But that being said, if these special teams errors persist, you could be looking at a 7-10 type of season where still in terms of record and improvement on last season, but I feel like the difference between that like 7-10 and 8-9, like having double digit losses would be at this point with how, even though we were, or at least myself was a bit early on it, by the time the season kicked off, the general public was pretty well on this team, wafting between that 8-9, 9-8. And if they end up
Yeah.
below that, then all of a sudden, even though it's a 3-win improvement or 4-win improvement, depending on how you look at that week 18 from last year, it starts to feel like a little bit of a disappointment of a season. And that can come down to something as small as a bad kicking.
Yeah. I love that. I love that you're shouting out special teams because it really does matter.
Yeah,
Um, One thing I just want to say real quick, just shout out Will Campbell. You're a dog. We can move on though.
he is. Yeah.
He's killed it. Next is the Browns. This is a difficult team. I think like obviously the thing you point out is just like quarterback, right? That makes sense. But weirdly enough, obviously like the Bengals game was close. The Ravens game, they never had a shot. So I really focus more on the Bengals game in this one. It's just mistakes, right? Like the 2 turnovers from the drop passes from Joe Flacco lost them the game. It might have been 3. The point is though, is that it's just those mistakes, and they could be looking at a 1-1 record, which is really, really impressive. And so for the Browns organization, it really is just like, even if we know that their roster, like especially their offense and their quarterback situation isn't good, their defense is talented. Like they do have pieces on that defense that that can provide a floor. But if the offense is going to be making the mistakes that they did, it's just like not going to really matter. And so
Yeah.
in terms of like a big problem that they can fix, I feel like that's the best thing to pick.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, kind of hard to go wrong with an answer there, except for maybe
Yeah.
literally just Miles Garrett. uh,
He's the issue, guys.
and I actually think that, um, and this is a whole other tangent that we don't need to fully go down. Um, Usually I'm pretty tough to convince that a organizational failure consistently under the regime of a head coach is due to failings of the head coach. Whenever it's said and done, and Nick Stefanski is out of Cleveland and nothing has changed, which is probably the most likely outcome, I won't think negatively of Kevin Stefanski.
No, no,
I would immediately be looking to hire him if I was a bottom tier team in need of a head coach.
no, absolutely. I agree with you completely.
My next team is the Buffalo Bills. Now, I could have picked the easy way out and just said the defense or some aspect of the defense relative to the offense, because that is true. There is a disparity between those two sides of the ball. But really, my answer to the Bills was, in the broad sense, very similar to yours with the Ravens, where it's almost a psychological problem. Every single person in the Buffalo Bills organization knows that barring catastrophic injury, they are winning this division. And now that the Chiefs have started 0-2, pretty much a cinch for a top 2 seed. The only thing that they're fighting for in this regular season, it's going to feel like, is trying to get that number 1 seed. And so the Bills have reached this weird point where the regular season doesn't matter for them, but they actually still haven't done anything in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And that's a really weird place for an organization to be psychologically, because as compare that to like a Chiefs, where you can say, the regular season doesn't matter for the Chiefs. But that's because the proof is in the pudding that they've reached the playoffs in a myriad of ways, always winning the division, but looking incredible or looking meh. And it really has not affected how the season actually turns out in terms of result. There's been very little correlation between regular season and success and playoff success, both for the Bills and for the Chiefs, who are the kind of the mirror images of each other. But the problem is that the Chiefs have always seemed to come out on top and the Bills never do. And so the biggest problem that I can point out for the Bills is literally just the problem that they haven't been able to get past the Chiefs or just the AFC in general.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm right there with you. Okay, next team, the Bengals. Obviously, there's two things I think that stick out, right? Offensive line, defense. I'm going to go a little bit broad here, and this is going to be a little bit of a tangent, and I'm about to get on my soapbox because this is something that I think people don't really understand about the Bengals, but needs to be understood. And it really starts off with, and to clarify, it's play calling is the biggest problem that the Bengals have. Um, Listen to this. The Bengals O-line combined pass blocking grade yesterday, so this was against the Jaguars. With Joe Burrow on the field, it was 49.9%. So that was their pass blocking grade with Joe Burrow on the field, 49.9. With Jake Browning on the field, it was 73.1. In 2023, it was 67% with Browning and 54% with Burrow. So then the question is, why is that the case? And that's a really tough question to answer unless you've watched every single game of the Bengals, which I have, and understand ball, which I think I do. There's really two things. The first one is, unfortunately, Joe Burrow tries to get too much dip on that chip. He, especially early on in the season, consistently starts out by saying, we have to go fast, we have to go big, and tries for long yardage plays. But it's not just Joe Burrow, it's also Zach Taylor. When Joe Burrow is on the field, he plays incredibly aggressively, especially early on in games. That's why you see the situation where you have, at the beginning of the games, offense sometimes struggle, but then gets better as the game progresses. But then also, I think that this is the answer to why the Bengals have consistently started slow, especially on offense. It's because the more pressure that there is, the more conservative that Zach Taylor gets, which different coaches react to pressure different ways. That's how Zach Taylor consistently reacts to pressure in terms of season long perspective as well as an individual game outlook. And so the reason why I say that is to say that when Browning gets in, it's not like he's better than Joe Burrow, because that's like one alternative, right? Is that like Jake Browning is just like better? Obviously, that's not the case. So then you have to point to different things. And I think that, again, one, I think Joe Burrow does have an issue with holding on to the ball too long and trying to force the ball and force a big play, specifically against a blitz and against pressure. But the other thing too is that against the Jaguars on Sunday, here's what happened. Joe Burrow got out, Jake Browning got in, and Zach Taylor said, I am going to dial up every single play possible to get Jamar Chase the ball. And that led to an incredibly successful offense, obviously. And what's frustrating to watch as a Bengals fan is that, and this is why I think like it's a mix of both play calling and Joe Burrow, because I think that Jake Browning is not the type of quarterback to go into look at the play and like change it at the line of scrimmage, where Joe Burrow is more willing to do that and take more risks, which is fine. But the problem is that, and this is why it's like, I'm not going to point out the offensive line, because it actually is kind of frustrating to me to see people blaming the offensive line for what happened to Joe Burrow and really the Bengals as an organization. Because if you think about it, they have invested in the offensive line.
Yeah.
Like, look at we have 2 new guards, and like we have a rookie left guard who is doing incredibly well, let up 0 pressures in, I believe, week 1 and 2. He might have let up like 1 or 2 in week 1. He's doing incredible, right? We have a right tackle who struggles with injuries. He's in his second year. He's doing well, right? Orlando Brown was a big signing. Ted Karras has been a leader within the locker room. And then we have Dalton Reisner, who has been incredible. Like, this is all that Bengals fans have asked for. The Bengals offensive line is not going to do well against a 7-man blitz. And when you don't show to a team that you can beat a 7-man blitz, they are going to run it every single time. And as soon as Jake Browning hit one screenplay to Jamar Chase for 10 yards, they stopped blitzing. They had a normal 4-man set, and our offensive line created a clean pocket with a really good grade for Jake Browning. And then our offense was able to get going. So we have to understand that, yes, the offensive line isn't the best. And yes, in the past, the organization has not done a good enough job addressing it. But we can't say the same for right now, this organization, or for the Bengals in 2025. And that we have to also understand that there is a difference in play calling when it's Jake Browning versus Joe Burrow. And like, this is, like, I feel like I could go on for hours. Like, there is not a team that is more set up to beat a blitz with their weapons than the Bengals. We have the best guy. Jamar Chase, bar none, is the best weapon in the NFL to catch a screen and go for a touchdown.
Yeah.
And so that's what you need to do. Like, okay, I see that they're going to send a bunch of people because, our team lets up a lot of sacks. Oh, look, because they're sending 7, Jamar Chase has a one-on-one coverage. Just throw it to him immediately, right? Throw it to him in 2 yards and see what happens. And most of the time, he gets the first down. And that opens up the entire offense, because then we have this situation where they're not sending a bunch of pressure. Our O-line can actually be put in an environment to be successful. And then we let our weapons cook. That's why I'm not out on the Bengals season, because I truly believe that we can have a winning record. When you look at the schedule, I think we can go 10-7 with Jake Browning. And if Joe Burrow comes in mid-December, I 100% think that we can be in a position to make the playoffs when Joe Burrow gets there. And so it's one of those situations where it's like, as a whole, we just need to fix our fundamental understanding of how we approach pressure situations, because that's the issue that the Bengals have had. And we have the solution, right? Like we do. Like, Jamar Chase is the answer to this problem. We need to be able to call a blitz buster. And this is why, again, like, part of this goes to Joe Burrow, is because, like, okay, you look at you can look at the line before the play, see that they're sending, 6, 7 people, and you can say, hey, check, 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 and audible out of it. Like we did it in high school. Like surely an NFL organization would be able to figure out this scenario, figure out a blitz buster whenever they're clearly sending pressure. And so all of that being said, the offensive line is above average as I expected. A 73.9% or 4% or whatever it was passing block grade is really, really good. That is very, very successful and will lead to winning football. And the reason why they were successful is because the coach as well as the quarterback put them in a situation to be successful. If we continue to do that, we're going to see a productive offense from the Bengals. And Jamar Chase is about to go ballistic. Like, I guarantee it.
I mean, I'll leave it there. You said pretty much everything that could have been said.
That's the problem with the Bengals is that they don't trust their playmakers in short yardage situations against the blitz, and they need to.
I think the only other potential theory is that, is Joe Burrow, you know how quarterbacks always give big gifts to their offensive linemen? Is Joe Burrow like skimping on those? Is he giving them like fake Rolexes?
They just don't like him.
They just don't like him.
Yeah.
It's not that they're not good. They just don't like Joe. But no, I mean,
and again, like obviously there are certain situations on a play-by-play basis where it's like, yes, the O-line failed him. Like, right? Like Joe Burrow was in a terrible situation. That was the O-line fault. But I'm saying like in a bigger, broader picture.
Yeah.
This is the overarching issue with the Bengals.
Yeah, no, it's silly to show one clip of an offensive line getting beat and be like, see, because that happens for literally every single team in the NFL. You could always pick a clip and just be like, oh man, the offensive line is struggling. Like, you actually have to look at it in the broader context of an entire game and even a multi-game stretch. I'll finish off. It's really quick. I have the Jets left for the AFC East. It's defensive anemia in the sense of, once again, the run game becoming an issue. They've allowed in their first 2 games pretty much 140 rushing yards per game, and it's not giving their secondary a chance to play up to their ability whatsoever because, I mean, and part of this is almost where it's another thing where I could pick a whole bunch of different areas to highlight, single out. We knew the Aaron Glenn regime would take a while to kick off. I expected the Steelers game, I understood because of the weirdness of week 1. And the Bills offense is really good. So I'm not ready to rule this out as like being a 3-14 season. But the thoughts of this in my mind that we're potentially closer to like 6-11, maybe even 7-10 with a bit of luck, that's evaporating a little bit, but it's a tough-ish schedule to start the season. We'll see how week 3 goes, but the Jets, if I had stock in them, it would be lower than what I bought it at right now.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, we can move on to the AFC South. This is going to be really quick. It's the Texans. We've talked about it before. It's the offensive line. Don't need to overcomplicate it. I will shout them out. They did really well within the first half or at least like the most of the first half. The game tonight against the Buccaneers that I watched, they did pretty well. I think a large part of that was because the play calling was way better. They were able to establish the run, a lot of play, which then set up the play action, which creates a lot of good advantages for an offensive line, especially whenever CJ Stroud is like in a bootleg action and like, immediately escaping the pocket to buy time.
Yes.
So I do think play calling is helping there. People don't understand how much play calling can make up for a bad offensive line to a certain extent. But yeah, that's the issue. We can move on to the next team.
Yeah. My next division is the AFC West, and I'm going to start off by talking about the Denver Broncos. And the biggest problem is, and we discussed this a little bit Sunday evening, Adam and I did, and the biggest problem that I'm about to give could be misperceived by some people. And even though Adam and I had differing opinions on what the Broncos would be this season. I believe that they would be much more down. Adam believed that they would be really up and potentially competing for the AFC West. Some people like to rewrite the history of what Bo Nix's rookie season looked like. And part
100%.
of that is and I don't even say this with a necessarily negative connotation, but wishful thinking about what the future could hold, building off of that rookie season.
Mhm.
That being said, he still had to make that leap. And arguably, through the first 2 weeks of the season, it's looked like he's regressed from where he was at. And where he was at last season was an average NFL quarterback.
Mhm.
And so the Broncos will have an identical ceiling to last season at best if this level of play continues, which is sneaking
100%.
into a wild card spot and getting bounced in the first round relatively handily. And so
Yeah.
it seems like, I was about to say it seems like a simplification, but to be fair, this is the first one of any of the teams we've done so far where we've highlighted the quarterback, where there are certain teams where the roster is good enough built around them to where if the
Yeah.
quarterback play isn't there, that is what you can absolutely highlight and you should highlight.
Yeah. There's a couple things here because I kind of want to, I guess you could say, like, not clarify my stance, but give my opinion as someone who is high on the Broncos and still is relatively.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, I'm not giving up on them, but there are definitely question marks now to my overarching opinion. The first one is that I was not the type of person who was high on the Broncos because I was high on Bo Nix. I 100% understood that he played like an average NFL quarterback. In my opinion, it was more of I don't really see a reason why that would regress, right? Like I understand when have a Jaden Daniels type season, how you almost play past your ceiling and then there's just like a level of regression that can come from that, even though it's really, really good.
Yeah.
For me, it was more about that. Basically what I'm saying is that the more to the average you are, the more sustainable it is.
Fair.
Obviously, because that's why it's average. And so if Bo Nix is an average quarterback last year, there's a good chance that he'll be an average quarterback this year. And I think that they made enough moves around the edges to improve that defense. Their offensive line is really the same, that they should still have that, a level of success past what they were last year. I would also like to clarify, I'm high on the Broncos, but I did have them as a first round exit within the playoffs.
Fair.
So
Yeah.
it's not like I was so high that I thought they were contenders. It was more like I think that they can have like a 11-6, 12-5 type season. I still think that they can. It's just that you're right. Like Bo Nix is not playing like an average quarterback. He's playing like a bad quarterback. And furthermore, the offensive line is regressing in a way that I don't quite understand. Like, I don't know why it is the same pieces. I don't understand why they're struggling. I need to look more at the film to truly understand that. Um, but yeah, like obviously, if this continues, the Broncos are not going to be what I thought they were. And I don't think I made a mistake in what I said. Like, I thought my logic was still sound. It just,
Yeah.
the factors did not play out like I thought they did or that they would. Um, Next team for me is the Colts. Now, the Colts is one of those interesting situations just because it's like they've played so well within the first 2 weeks that it's like, what is the issue? But also, like, I can't grade them or I can't like act like they're the Ravens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, like, even though, like, yeah, they're 2-0, but like,
And probably
come
will
on.
be 3-0. They played the Titans next week.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where it's like, do we truly, or is this like a Saints situation from last year, as Jonathan pointed out when we were talking about them earlier this week? But I think that the issue with the Colts is pretty much the same, which is that it's their receiving offense as a whole. Um, and like again, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, Daniel Jones has done great. Like I do want to give him his flowers.
Yeah.
I don't think like if there is any part of what the Colts are doing that is not sustainable, it would be that receiving offense with the combination of Daniel Jones and then just like compared to other 2-0 teams at the very least, a lackluster group of weapons. And so that's the problem that I chose for them. I think as the season goes on, we're going to see a lot more problems.
Yeah. It's
Come
very
up.
unlikely, even though, like, it didn't even fundamentally change my opinion that much then. It's very unlikely that this is going to be a Sam Darnold-esque season like last year for Daniel
I don't.
Jones.
Yeah,
Like a regression
Michael
to the
Pittman
means.
is not as good as Justin Jefferson.
Maybe. You don't know that, Adam. You don't know that.
My bad. My
Maybe
bad.
Daniel Jones unlocked him.
True.
My next team is the team most dear and near and dear to my heart, my beloved Kansas City Chiefs. There are simultaneously a lot of things that I could have said, but really only one if you actually watch the games. Let's be clear, I'm not counting the Rashee Rice suspension and the Xavier Worthy injury. I feel like that would be a cop-out in the same way with, like, your issue for the Bengals wasn't obviously the Joe Burrow injury. Like,
Yeah.
that would be the biggest one technically, but it's the running game. And
Yeah.
I've been saying this, and I'm more hesitant to say this because I was, raised in it's a very Midwestern family football culture in all of my dad's side of the family, where we're very hesitant to be critical of one of our own. Isaiah Pacheco is not a good running back. Like and it's really hard for me to say that because of how beloved he is as the 7th round pick who popped in the Super Bowl run against the Eagle, where we went on to win the Super Bowl against the Eagles, Philadelphia, 3 years ago now. I'm officially at the point where the running back room of Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt are not just not good enough for where a Super Bowl contender should be at, but just below average in the NFL, and it's really not even that close. Patrick Mahomes has been the Chiefs' leading rusher in the first 2 games of the season.
By a lot. It's
By
not
a
even really
lot.
close
No.
either.
If this, what I wrote down in my notes is that Patrick Mahomes could legitimately be the season rushing yards leader for the Chiefs if this trend of both play calling and run blocking continue, because Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt are not good enough in and of themselves to be able to compensate for some of this. There's 2 things with the run play calling, and this is not me removing blame, so to speak, from Pacheco or Hunt, but it is to highlight something. Andy Reid is a very predictable play caller when it comes to specific, not in terms of the crazy things that he can do within a pass or like a gadget play, but he's very predictable because you know when he's going to run the ball.
Yeah.
You can just sense if you watch enough Chiefs games, oh, it's 1st and 10. We just had a little 15-yard, pickup first down from Travis Kelce or Hollywood Brown. 1st and 10. Okay, let's run the ball right down the middle. And you just know that's going to be the play call. You just know it in your heart. And the second thing is on the very specific type of run that I don't even know what you would call it schematically, but we only do it for Isaiah Pacheco, which is he lines up to either Mahomes' right or left. He comes to get the ball at the slant and the angle that you would, like, going a diagonal route, interceding with Mahomes or whoever's handing him the ball, and then forward into whatever gap he's going to go into. We run at least 8 to 10 times per game with Pacheco where he intercedes with Mahomes and then does a 90-degree turn and runs in the other direction, or not in the other direction, but to the other side of the gap. So instead of running straight, he hits Mahomes, stops, and juts back this way. And I don't know why, because the one singular skill set that Isaiah Pacheco has that makes him average or above average is running downfield with a head of steam.
Yeah.
Why would you
Yeah. It's
remove
definitely
Pacheco's ability to run with a downfield?
So here, just to add a bit of the schematics, there's two possibilities. It's probably a counter. Knowing Andy Reid, that seems like just like a run call that he would play,
Yeah.
or a run play that he would call. It also could be like a zone read, where the whole entire O line is taking a step to the left or to the right, and they're leaving that defensive end, and Pacheco sees that that defensive end is crashing and doesn't have good containment, and he just like runs to that side.
But the
So either of
problem is,
those could be the situations. The problem is Pacheco is not the back to run a counter with.
Pacheco's one, not the back to run a counter with. Two, that would make sense if you ran it in situational spots where you maybe set up something identical where he first runs downfield with a head of steam, and then the next time you run it,
what you
do
normally
it.
do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the point. It's like, it's a sneaky little way to put just a pinch of trickery into a standard run play. But when you just run the counter 6 times in a game, and every single time you either get tackled for a loss, like Isaiah Pacheco's probably average yards per carry on counter plays is 1 yard. He's had a couple where he goes for 2 or 3 and a couple that are tackles for loss. It probably evens out to about 1 yard. And so the Chiefs, if there is a legitimate concern to their offense, it is not actually any aspect of Patrick Mahomes. He has thrown the ball pretty much fine this season. He's ran the ball incredibly. He's trucking guys. He's had back-to-back games where he's trucked a guy and kept on running for 5 yards.
Yeah.
It's not Mahomes. It's that while the Chiefs do not have their wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2, they are incapable of helping Mahomes out in the slightest in the run game. He is constantly playing from 2nd and 9 or even behind the sticks, then 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5.
Yeah, no. And it's one of those things where it's like when you have a defense like that, the best way to control the game is through the run game.
Yeah.
And so that you're right. And like, obviously we're going to see a lot of improvement when Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy eventually do come back. But I also want to point out with that, obviously the offensive line has really struggled in the run. I think that Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith are good options. The other guys, Josh Simmons has done incredible.
Let me shout out Josh Simmons.
Well. He's been incredible in the pass. In the run, a bit of a mixed bag.
Yes.
Kingsley Suamataia, I would say pretty objectively has not been good in both the run and the pass.
And Juwan Taylor, and I wanted to say something because I always get really mad at Juwan Taylor.
He's the worst.
He's a terrible run blocker. If you actually look at his pass blocking, he's actually literally one of the best pass blockers in the NFL. However, he holds way too. I'm telling you, you can look at the advanced analytics.
No, I'm sure.
But he draws way too many penalties, and he's bad in the run game which also makes it infuriating because probably 80% of the counter plays that we run with Pacheco are where Pacheco runs back to the right towards Juwan Taylor.
Well, and I will say, to be fair, to understand a little bit of the context of why his analytics are probably so good, or I guess you could say like stats are so good, is because of how often Patrick Mahomes rolls out right. Yes. And so like, if he can see the guy who would be getting pressure against him, like Patrick Mahomes is generally not going to let that guy sack him or even get a pressure. So that is a big aspect. But no, I 100% agree with you. Everything you said. They need to establish the run game. Their running backs aren't good enough, and behind a lackluster O-line performance in the first 2 weeks, it's not going to get it done.
Go get Breece Hall.
Literally. But if you're good, I can move on to my next team, which would be the Jaguars. The Jaguars are really interesting. Obviously, they do. Which this is really funny because like I'm not trying to hate, but when I was watching the Bengals game and hearing the announcers glaze the Jaguars offense, like, I'm a Liam Cohen truther. Like, I love Liam Cohen. Let's be clear. They played the Panthers in week 1.
Yeah.
So, like, and then the Bengals in week 2. Like, they haven't been tested. But the biggest issue that they have is organization on their offense. And the reason why I'm saying organization is because I guess, like, organization as well as execution, right? Like, they lost that game against the Bengals because they failed to execute and because they just looked unorganized. Obviously, they went for it on 4th down. It was a drop ball by Brian Thomas. There was another situation where Trevor Lawrence threw somewhat of an errant pass, and Liam Cohen was like, "You gotta hit him on the chest," and Trevor Lawrence was like, "Meh." So it's just like a lack of organization and execution for an offensive scheme that is incredibly successful, and
Yep.
I know should perform well. The players got to execute. That's it. That's all I have on the Jaguars.
My next team is really quick, and it's not because they're not an interesting team. It's just really the entirety of their outlook is determined by this one thing. It's the Chargers. And I phrased this as a question, so it's not really phrased like a problem, but you'll get what I mean. Is the trust and belief in Justin Herbert a one-game gimmick, or is it a franchise-altering outlook?
I love that is the perfect way to phrase that question.
Yeah.
There's not even anything you really need to say.
Yeah.
We're about to find out.
and we will find out tonight. We don't know as of right now. They're playing the second very late Monday night football game that's not going to be done till almost probably 1 a.m. Central Time.
And I'm watching the whole thing.
I can't wait. But yeah, that's it. If Justin Herbert is given the same trust and belief that he received in week 1 versus the Chiefs, this is a team that can legitimately beat out the Chiefs for the first time in 8 years in the AFC West.
Yeah. And I want that to happen. Not like because of the Chiefs or anything like that. And I will also say there's a large part of me that wants to be a Justin Herbert hater simply because of all the people that compare him to Joe Burrow, which just pisses me off. But the truth is that I feel like Brandon Staley did such an injustice to his career that I wanted to see him successful so bad. And John Harbaugh, if we see this trust and this maximization in Justin Herbert throughout the season, it's going to be incredibly rewarding for me. So it's actually funny because I started that off by saying that this isn't fueled by hate, when in reality, it all is fueled by hate. It's my hate for Brandon Staley that I want to see Justin Herbert
I was going to say, it's just the source of the hate.
Yeah, but it's all love. But my next team is the Titans. The biggest problem they have is the receiving offense, and it's twofold. 1, drops by the wide receivers, and 2, too many sacks taken by Cam Ward. Other than that, I thought Cam Ward has looked great.
And if just one of those 2 problems was fixed, they probably beat the Broncos week 1.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, we can move on.
My final team in the AFC West is the Las Vegas Raiders. Yet another instance of this, but run blocking. It was atrocious week 1. Geno Smith is good enough by himself to win a handful of games in an NFL season. If this team wants a shot at a playoff spot, the offense has to be complementary, because from, and we've obviously, again, Chargers Raiders tonight, we've only seen this team play 1 game. This team is good enough to do something similar to what the Patriots want to do, which is be like 9-8 and sneak into a wild card spot if the math works out the right way. That won't happen if the run blocking doesn't improve. But a world where it does improve and Ashton Giunti turns into an above average NFL running back in his first season, this is a good team.
And there's 2 things I want to note with that, because I think that you hit the nail on the head. The first one is that while Ashton Giunti's average yards per carry was bad, his average yards per carry after contact was one of the best in the league in week 1, which is a trend that continues from college. Yeah. The second thing that I want to say is that, and that's something I didn't know last podcast or last episode. I wish I could have pointed that out. but I even watched the game after the podcast.
Mhm.
And let me tell you, a lot of the reasons why his average yard per carry was so low is because at the end of the game, it was a situation where they were running out the clock
Yeah.
and he had two or three runs where it was a tackle for a loss. And yeah, like I do think it's weird because the offensive line actually played really well in terms of pass blocking, I
Mhm.
thought, but in terms of run blocking, it was definitely a struggle.
Yeah.
And Ashton Genty, I'm still incredibly high on him. I think he's going to be incredible.
Fair. Yeah.
Um, all right, moving on to the NFC, the NFC North. Let's talk about the Bears. For me, the NFC is when we're going to start talking about some quarterbacks.
Mhm.
It's Caleb Williams. When I said that the Bears would be one of the biggest riser or the biggest riser within the NFL, what I assumed is a certain level of competence from a quarterback that we have not seen. After week one, I was actually kind of pleasantly, I guess you could say, like, I was pretty optimistic because what I saw was, about a quarter and a half of Caleb Williams playing within a system that actually made sense. And that was exciting to me because we hadn't seen it. And just like proof, like, okay, Caleb Williams is a quarterback that can play can play a competent football in a good scheme. Because that's really all I want to see from Caleb Williams this year. Can he just get his confidence back
Mhm.
and play within a good scheme? If we can see that, then we can build on those extra strengths in years to come. He, we just got to see it more. His QBR right now is 43.7, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. And that game doesn't look any better after what the Falcons did to the Vikings in week 2. So,
100%.
yep.
Yeah.
Uh, the NFC East for me, I will start with the team to beat, the Philadelphia Eagles. To pass or not to pass? Will Jalen Hurts
Yeah.
be able to turn on the passing game at will when he needs to? Now, at this point, from what I've seen of Jalen Hurts throughout the entirety of his career, the answer is more likely to be yes than to not be the case. But averaging pretty much like 100 passing yards per game through your first 2 games of the season, even though you're 2-0, is not a method for sustained success in the NFL. And I get Saquon Barkley is good, but you can't, when the defense in the margins declines, and when you just put into the perspective of the entire history of the NFL in the Super Bowl era, that a running back is not going to have a season duplicated the next season, like what Saquon Barkley did the previous year, then the passing game will have to turn on at some point. When AJ
Yeah.
Brown is, getting one catch per half, like, I mean, it's not actually that bad. I think it averages out to like, 4 receptions a game, what he's had so
Yeah.
far. I mean, that's a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL more likely than not. And so, and that makes it sound like I'm really down on the Eagles. The Eagles, in many ways, have regressed less than I expected them to. I will also note, I don't think it is that unlikely that, and I'm saying this legitimately, and I know it's going to come off as biased, but I'm not even complaining about the false start that happens on 60% of the tush pushes.
So stupid.
It's really stupid. Like any objective football fan should watch that and be upset.
I hated it. I was pissed off.
And so here's the thing. It would not be shocked that some point mid-season, the NFL puts in the call, not to ban the tush push, but they put in the call to the referees and they say, call it.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was next week.
Yeah. And so, and then
it should be
and then the play
there's
guys.
enough like media attention that
and that's
I feel
why,
like the
and
NFL is going to react quickly.
And that's why I wish I would have said that this off season, because I just couldn't, for whatever reason, I couldn't put the argument together in my mind. It's why I always thought it was stupid to ban the play in terms of like the media perception, everything like that. Just call the penalty that it is 2/3 of the time and you solve it.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting, and like, I don't understand, because like, you're right. I've never heard before this game the idea that that it was an offsides. Or I meant, sorry, that it was a false start.
Well, but it's also not even just a false start. If you really actually look at the NFL rule books, should actually be an illegal formation because the guards and the tackles, before they even move, are up further than they actually should be.
They're in the neutral. They're in the neutral zone. And so like those two things I've never heard anyone talk about. And as soon as that game happened, I was like, duh, because we had a conversation talking about the tush push where I was like, I don't think it should be banned. And you were like, well, it should. But like that never even came up. And it's like that you're right. Like,
I also literally don't understand how it's not called anyway. Like, and I'm to be clear, because this would be very hypocritical of me, I'm not actually saying that it's some conspiracy, but you would think it would be the easiest thing in the world to call, because it's right down the line. Like you have the ref right there.
I have no idea.
We can move on. We can move on.
Yeah, like I'm sure the NFL is going to take care of that just because of how much. Like the NFL is about $1 at the end of the day, and so they're going to react to it. The thing I want to say about the Eagles is really twofold. The first one is that I think that one, you're right to point out this issue because the defense is going to regress. I think that it's not just about the pieces, but one thing I've said a lot, I don't think I've ever said it on camera on the podcast, is that the DB room is the most variable position in the NFL. And so when you have all of your DBs putting up season high numbers, chances are there's going to be regression there, almost guaranteed actually, in any position group, but especially the DB room. The second thing that I want to point out is that no one's talking about the offensive coordinator change and how that could potentially impact AJ Brown's production.
It looks because the first thing you would think it would be the other way around, where like a new OC comes in and he's like, I really want to appease my star wide receiver. He's getting less targets.
He's getting less targets. The other reason why that's the case, and this is an issue, if this continues, this is going to be an issue. It's schematically, the amount of touches that, AJ Brown gets against man coverage and zone coverage is too significant to not matter, because the Cowboys ran zone the whole game.
Yeah.
The Chiefs, other than in situations where they were sending a lot of pressure, ran zone the whole game. And so it's one of those things where it's like, if you can immediately turn off,
it was zone.
It was zone. And that's the only time AJ Brown got the catch is in that situation. The reason why that's impactful is because if you have the way you can immediately take away, in my opinion, a top 3 wide receiver on an offense is by playing zone.
It's kind of weird.
You're kind of cooked. Like that's not a recipe for a Super Bowl.
And then
at the very least,
and then we can move on. But I also just want to say, people their gut reaction be like, the defense regress. They only gave up 17 points. Problem is that the Chiefs really should have had 27 points. You had Harrison Butker miss a field goal, and then catch that 95% of the time Travis Kelce makes for a touchdown gets turned into an interception. And so, like, that defense was not necessarily as good as that box score may tell you.
No, 100%. Okay, my next team is the Lions. So the Lions, this is a really tough one because it's like, it's hard to say that there's an issue. Like it's hard to include week 2. It was just such a dominant win that they didn't really have issues at all. And so I'll point out basically, and this is going to be really quick. It's still the offensive line, right? Like against the Bears, they did great. The whole offense was just like untouchable. Like it was just such a lopsided game that it's like, there's not really takeaways on either team other than one was so much better than the other one. So it's still the offensive line. Against the Packers, they struggled. If they're going to go against teams like the Packers and struggle, that's going to be a big issue for their season.
Yeah. What is the biggest problem for the Dallas Cowboys? Not having Micah Parsons. Your next team, Adam.
That sounds good. The Packers. The Packers are another one of those situations where it's like they've looked so good. How do you even determine what their problem is? And I think that again, this is where you do have to look towards what could their potential problem be in a situation where they're going against a contender in a playoffs. And which, by the way, I just got to point out real quick. Jonathan has been cooking with his random, like, big tangent, like big overall takes about teams that he's high on and down on. I've it's never been more over for me as an analyst, right? Like, I'm high on the Vikings and the Broncos. Jonathan picked the Chargers and the Packers. Like, I'm cooked. The point is, though, with the Packers, I still think it's the receiving offense, and I think this problem is manifests itself in two ways. The first one is there's still no clear wide receiver one. It hasn't really mattered because of how well that defense has played and how well the offense has played. I'm going to give them their flowers, but I think that that does matter whenever you're playing a team like, I don't know. It's one of those things where maybe the Eagles, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But then the other thing too is Jordan Love has played incredible. He still is showing a lot of the tendencies that make me hesitate on him. He's
Fair.
still having errant balls. He's still struggling with accuracy. His efficiency isn't as much as high as you would want it. And so that's the biggest issue for the Packers. But one thing I will say, and this is funny because I feel like all of the things that I've been wrong about, at the very least, I've been able, in how I've articulated my position, I've also been able to explain why I would be wrong. And in all the situations where I'm wrong, I've nailed it.
What you've done is you've identified what the hinge of it is, and the hinge has just been exploded in both of your cases so far.
In every single situation.
Like the door was ripped off.
Exactly. Like I'm like, if I'm wrong, this is the exact reason why, and that is exactly what the case has been. So I'm still giving myself some credit.
Yeah.
But like what?
Go ahead.
One second. I was just gonna say, but what we talked about as soon as Micah Parsons was traded, where it was like, this is now a defense that can go crazy. And if if Jordan Love takes a step, that this is a team that will dominate in the regular season and could win a Super Bowl. So far, we've been absolutely correct about that.
Yes. My next team is the New York Giants. It's pretty simple. The Russell Wilson roller coaster. He lives by the moon ball. He dies by the moon ball. And this can be game to game. It can be half to half. It can be drive to drive. Russell Wilson had an incredible performance yesterday until he just randomly decided to throw the ball 50 yards into the air just because he was getting pressured, but not like 50 yards into the air out of bounds, 50 yards in the air into the middle of the field, into the wide open arms of a Cowboys safety. And the game was over from there. And so, like, that's Russell Wilson for you. And you'll have some games where it works the whole time. You'll have some games where it doesn't work at all. You'll have some games where it works 90% of the time. But the problem is when you live and die by that, the risk reward of that is so much more of a swing. I mean, the X factor in so many NFL games is the turnover battle. And when you throw up balls like that, like, that's the Russell Wilson experience. That's par for the course for Russell Wilson.
Yeah, absolutely. My last team in the NFC North is the Vikings. The biggest problem that I have for them is simply injuries. And this is why I'm actually not out on the Vikings
That's
entirely, but this is 100% the biggest issue with them. Here's the list, right? And it's sad because, like, if I would have known, like, I should have. I feel so stupid. Like, I picked the Vikings to beat the Falcons, and then as soon as I was watching the game and they showed up all the injuries, I was like, well, that was a bad pick.
You didn't know.
Right? So here's the defense. Jeff Okudah, Van Ginkel, Harrison Smith, and Blake Cashman.
Yeah.
Those could potentially be the most important defensive pieces they have outside of, like, Jonathan Grenard.
Yeah.
Like, that could
Those
be
are three of the top four. Like, Jonathan Grenard probably
yeah.
could be better than any of the three of them, but
yeah, for sure.
But 2 through 4 being gone isn't much of a consolation.
Yeah, and so the fact that they actually did do as well as they did on defense,
Good job.
Tip their cap to them, because they're literally missing like their star outside linebacker, their star middle linebacker, their star corner, and their star safety. like people are not talking about how injured this defense is.
And again, it is because and he hasn't looked good other than the fourth quarter of the Bears game. So let's be clear, I'm not shifting blame, but it is because people just get so hyper, tunnel vision on the quarterback that, there are people out there who aren't actually watching the games and they don't see, all of these defensive, the unit that was actually anticipated to be able to hold down the fort for the Vikings is hemorrhaging.
Yeah. So that's why it's like, okay, I truly believe in all of my heart that they would have won if they weren't as injured. But that's just the defense. Let's talk about the offensive line, because the biggest thing that I said was that JJ McCarthy doesn't have to be this great quarterback. He just has to be okay, because their offensive line is going to look great. One thing I didn't consider is that the three best offensive linemen they have would be injured. And part of this was before the game and part of this was during the game. Those injuries include Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, and Christian Darrisaw, their center, their star guard, and their left tackle. And not only that, but then I'm actually blanking on the name, but by the end of the game, they were on their third string right tackle.
Yeah.
So why were they able to shut down that offense? The pressure that they generated. Well, no crap, they're going to generate pressure when they're on their second string of every single position except for their guard by the end of the game. We should not look at the Vikings as this team that is ooh, look, JJ McCarthy is struggling, yada, yada, yada.
No,
crap, he's struggling.
That game was the equivalent of Kansas City, Tampa Bay Super Bowl, where it's it kind of just doesn't matter. It's unfortunate.
With the offensive line, and this is it's literally their most there's nothing they can do. I just can't understate how important these players are. So it's
but they're not the quarterback, Adam, so it doesn't matter.
Who gives a crap? This isn't a team that's going to win or lose by the quarterback. This is a team that's going to win or lose by the offensive line and the defense. That's always been my position. And when their best defenders and their whole line is out, tough luck.
My next team, and the last of the NFC East, the Washington Commanders. Adam, I think you're going to be proud of how it's niche, but it's broad at the same time. Not knowing where the yards are coming from. Who's their wide receiver one? Is it Deebo Samuel with 18 targets this season, or Terry McLaurin with 13 yards this season? Who's their RB1? Is it Krosky Merritt with 14 carries, Austin Eckler with 14 carries, or Jaden Daniels with 14 carries?
Well, it's definitely not Austin Eckler, because he's out for the season. He tore his Achilles.
Well, fair. But my point is that
yes, you're still true. Yeah.
I'm so true. The point is, and that was more of a statement. I could have just phrased that as the weaponry, but really the more so the point that I wanted to make is that this team can look very balanced in an almost bad way on offense.
Yeah.
Where sometimes you should just feed the ball to a guy. Sometimes, and so maybe in the running game that will clear up a bit with Krosky Merritt, with Eckler now being gone, unfortunately. But I do still have the same type of hesitancy that I had in the offseason about this team, where I don't know game to game who the guy is going to be on offense besides Jaden Daniels. And yeah, when you have a guy like Jaden Daniels, that can be good enough to legitimately just win you 10 games. That's how good I think you and I both believe Jaden Daniels in. But turning that into 10-7 or 12-5 competing for the NFC East in a Super Bowl, that's a big deal.
Yeah, and I think to just distill everything you said into one question, it's, will Terry McLaurin make the pay raise worth it.
Yeah.
Because that's where you would want it, right? Like you want a situation where it's like, yeah, consistently we're able to get the deep ball in those big chunk plays to Terry McLaurin. We haven't seen it in the first 2 weeks, and that's an issue for that offense.
Yeah. And it was probably the biggest part of their offense last year.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next, the NFC South is going to be really quick. Panthers, Bryce Young. His QBR is 47.2. He's had four touchdowns to 3 interceptions. He has not looked good. The defense was never going to look good. It's all about Bryce Young and whether or not he can prove that he is the franchise quarterback. So far, he hasn't.
49ers. This is what I put is Brock Purdy's health, which
Yeah.
I've avoided talking about injuries, like major injuries in that sense. Like yours for the Viking made sense because it's the cumulative effect.
Yeah.
But I mean this not just in the sense of like, oh, Brock Purdy's out. Can the 49ers stay above water? I also mean it in the organizational sense of what if this wasn't a fluke from Mac Jones in the Kyle Shanahan system. And this is just proof of what I've been saying, which is Kyle Shanahan's a really good coach. And you just paid a guy $55 million per year, made him a top paid franchise guy, NFL quarterback. You finish the sentence in your mind with whatever your thoughts about Brock Purdy are. You fill in the blank there. I'll just leave that as an open-ended problem.
100%. And one thing I do want to say too is that let's not get too excited about Mac Jones because he was playing the team that I'm about to talk about, which is the Saints.
Fair.
Really quick, the only thing I wrote down, roster. I think it's one of those situations where we're actually seeing a repeat from last year where the Saints are playing way above their potential on their roster. The difference is that their roster is so much worse that they're still 0-2 and don't look good within those games, but they're still playing above what their roster actually looks like. So this is another classic Saints seasons where they're starting the season off strong. They're giving everyone hope. The difference is that their roster is so behind the rest of the NFL that they are still 0-2 and going to get the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. We can move on.
Good. Succinct. Love it. The Arizona Cardinals. The offense is sluggish. However, that's actually perhaps my most optimistic problem relative to some of my belief in some of these other teams, because I don't really have doubt that when necessary, not to be some elite team, but this offense is talented enough to ultimately be fine. The defense has looked really good. And that was the concern for everyone. It's a 2-0 sluggish start for the Cardinals. But if you had told me that going into this season, the Arizona offense would look the way that they have in the first 2 weeks and they'd be 2-0, I think that I would sign up for that in a heartbeat if I was an Arizona Cardinals fan.
Yeah. The only thing I will say to that is that they did play the Panthers and the Saints, but a win is a win. And I think that would be true regardless of, even if they were playing like a mid-tier team, which I think that your whole opinion about them is that they are one of, if not the best mid-tier teams within the NFL, which is why they have a shot at the 7th seed.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, my next team is the Bucks. Obviously they're playing right now. It's a close game, 14-13. Texans just got a field goal with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So we'll see how that plans out. But my big problem is really just related to the one game that they did play. And it's really just turnovers. It's not that they had a lot of turnovers, but it's more that Baker Mayfield tied for an NFL high 4 turnover worthy plays in their week 1 victory over Atlanta. And that was one of the reasons why the game was as close as it was. I think that for that offense, I believe in that offense so much that I think that that's really where if they're going to struggle, it is going to be big because, Baker Mayfield is a double-edged sword. And the way that he's been playing in recent years, specifically last year, that was, obviously you got the good side of that, but there is a world where those turnovers, those 16 interceptions that he had last year does turn out to bite you. And so I think that for both of us, you predicted them to win the NFC. I predicted them to be second within the NFC. For that world to come to an existence, we do have to see some progression in Baker Mayfield's play on that end.
Fair. You're not wrong. The team up next for me is the Seattle Seahawks. Their biggest problem, ghosts. Sam Darnold seeing them. I mean, the wheels haven't fallen off for Sam Darnold in one of these games. I say that more ironically, but yeah, I mean, it's a Sam Darnold thing. This defense is great. Mike McDonald is a great defensive head coach. They will be an average NFL team if Sam Darnold plays average. I have my doubts that Sam Darnold will play averagely.
Yeah. All right, my last team is the Atlanta Falcons. And I think that there's a pretty clear one here. The red zone percentage, and specifically how often they score touchdowns when they're in the red zone. Right now, they score 28% of the time. They score a touchdown when they reach the red zone, which is 29th in the NFL. That's a problem. They have to fix it. Obviously, statistically, because of the Vikings game, it completely ruins that percentage, to be clear. But that's what I have for the Falcons.
Yeah. My last team is the Los Angeles Rams, and this is another quick one. It's the perpetual breath holding during every single Matthew Stafford drop back.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like the problem is an injury that hasn't happened yet, but we're all kind of holding our breath thinking that it might. If it doesn't, this team will probably be exactly what you and I think they are, which is a team that should be competing to win this division and be a fringe Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, that was fun. I feel like we did a great job addressing every team and also addressing everything that happened within week 2 to this point. With that in mind, I think the last thing we can do in order to really cap off week 2 is kind of go over our little point system and see how we're doing so far.
Yes.
So, Jonathan, leave that to you.
Well, this does somewhat matter because as a live update, the Texans just scored a touchdown and now have a 6-point lead. So it's not looking as good for one of your hinge games. However,
yes,
coming out of week 1, we ended up with I had 11 points. You had 14 points. As of pending the 2 Monday Night Football games tonight, I had 8 points this week because, tragically, my upset alert that I picked for an outright win, the Commanders over Green Bay, did not come to pass, and I lost 3 points for that. So only 8 points for me, whereas you, as of right now, have 10 points, majorly pending this Monday Night Football game, because if you win that game, you will gain 5 points.
Come on, Tampa Bay, please pull through.
And then, if I'm remembering correctly, we both had the Chargers tonight, so that would agree, or that would go together for 1 point for each of us. So as of right now, I have 19 points. You have 24. You could potentially walk away from tonight tied with me. You could, with a or not tied with me, but remaining where you are with a 5-point lead, or you could be walking away from tonight with a 11-point lead.
Come on, Baker, my goat. Come on.
That's where we're at right now, folks.
I need you guys right now. Oh my gosh. One thing I will say, just to pat ourselves on the back, I think that in, the first 2 weeks, averaging 11 to 12 games accurately, correctly predicted.
Yes.
I feel like that's pretty impressive.
We're goated is what we're saying.
Yeah, we're kind of the geniuses.
So now we get to do the classic predicting the entire slate of next week.
Let's do it.
I will this time I'll go ahead and read off the games,
Okay.
and you can give me your reaction, and we can alternate. Miami at Buffalo. That's the Thursday night
Buffalo.
football. I have Buffalo. Green Bay at Cleveland.
Green Bay. Is this like a trick?
I also have Green Bay. Indianapolis. Indianapolis at Tennessee. This could go interesting.
I'm taking the Colts.
I'm gonna take the Colts.
No,
as
actually, this is it's one of those things where it's like this, like we can. This is not as obvious. Obviously, like I don't know. There is a part of me that thinks like something's got to give with what the Colts are doing right now.
Yeah,
You
and
know what
this
I mean?
could
Like this
also
could
be
be
the
a letdown
weirdness
spot,
of
and like
Cam Ward.
division rivals, like Cam Ward could just go crazy. Like Calvin Ridley could figure out how to catch the ball. But I'm still going with the Colts.
We are moving to Cincinnati at Minnesota.
Oh, I really want to pick the Bengals. You got to realize. Oh, one thing I didn't point out with the injuries,
Mhm.
JJ McCarthy, because that was only in week 2. JJ McCarthy and Aaron Jones are also out for week 3. Carson Wentz is going to be the quarterback.
I really want to pick Minnesota, but that team
I'm
is
going Cincinnati.
I think I have to.
I really, and again, this is another reason why I'm saying like the Bengals have a shot. Like the season is not over.
I, I, I,
I'm going. Yeah, no, I've convinced myself. I'm going Cincinnati. Like Jamar Chase.
I am as well.
I think that Jake Browning has proved himself enough. Where
Um,
it's like obviously Justin Jefferson is incredible, right? Like,
yeah.
but like as a whole, like I just believe in that offense. I do. And it is tough. Like Brian Flores is going to make it incredibly difficult, right? Like that is a scary scheme. That's why I'm scared of it. But it's so close that it's like, I'm going to pick my team.
Yeah, and I also just as an aside, I don't even think the most degenerate sports gambler in the world is touching this game. Why would
No,
you? I mean,
no, I don't think so.
yeah. So I think we both
So
landed on Cincinnati. The next is
interesting.
Pittsburgh at New England.
This one's tough, actually.
I'll go ahead and tell you that
What are your
I
thoughts?
am picking New England. I think that after this last game that I saw, I think my vision of what Aaron Rodgers actually is has returned. I think that a guy like Christian Gonzalez can make life really hard for Aaron
Yeah.
Rodgers. I think
Yeah.
that Drake May can just steadily improve into increment by increment, game to game. If there's not another, major special teams errors or little missed kicks and missed PATs, I do think that New England will be able to edge it out.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like I'm struggling because the reason why I picked Seattle last week, why I picked Pittsburgh last week is this just seemed like a type of game that Pittsburgh would win. And I'm getting the same feeling,
I get what you
but like
mean.
I'm nervous that I'm gonna like this just seems like a Mike Tomlin win.
It does, and I get your reasoning at the same time where it's like it seemed like that last week, and so is Mike Tomlin really going to lose 2 of those in a row? That was at the top of my
Yeah.
head as well.
I think I'm gonna go Pittsburgh.
Okay, fair enough.
Like I'm not like this is my last time where I'm seeing this type of matchup where it's where I'm going to go with Pittsburgh. That being said, they established, Patriots established that run game. This could get kind of out of hand quick. But we can move on.
100%. The next game is a rematch of the team that played the Super Bowl champions closest in the playoffs, the LA Rams versus the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of thought about this game. And this is my upset alert, and I'm picking the Rams to win.
I had a sneaky feeling that you would.
So the Eagles are 3.5-point favorites. This just seems, and I keep saying this, but for some reason, this is just like calling out to me as a type of game that the Eagles would lose.
Fair. And so just to clarify, you're picking this as an outright win for
I
LA.
am
Okay.
for the Rams. Yeah. I just feel like there's just a part of me that thinks that like with like an efficient Matthew Stafford with weapons and a Sean McVay scheme is going to be able to put up points against that defense, and that the defensive line of the Rams can just do enough.
Yeah.
Especially with the struggles that the Eagles passing game has. Like part of this is me like straight up kind of cementing that I'm not entirely like this year feels different for that Eagles passing game. And
And
this is me
like,
saying that like I'm now betting on that to be real.
I mean, there's a world in which Matthew Stafford could have literally more than double the passing yards of Jalen Hurts. And that's just a hard offensive output to be able to beat if you're Philadelphia. So I get that
Yeah.
pick. I really do. And to be clear, I picked Philadelphia. I think that weirdly enough, I have part of my pick for Philadelphia was, and I don't want to give this away. Your pick is locked in. You can't change it. This is a home game for Philly. LA's going to
Yeah.
have to come all the way across the country. So I don't know. There's just vibes going both ways. New York Jets at Tampa Bay.
I have the Buccaneers.
I have the Buccaneers as well. The next game is Las Vegas at Washington.
This one, see, this one's tough
It
because Jaden
is.
Daniels might not play.
I am. I went Vegas. It's not my upset alert, but I went Vegas.
Okay. So like I'm just he's day to day.
He's day to day. It'll be tough. Technically, I don't actually think the line was big enough. Like Vegas doesn't even know. I think the line was Washington 1.5. They don't even know what's going on. And so as of
Yeah.
when we're recording, I wouldn't have been able to pick this as my upset alert. And I really wouldn't have wanted to either way. But I feel like also, even separately from the Jane Daniels injury, this just feels like a type of game where a team that regresses from last season and a team that's gaining momentum from last season, it swings towards Vegas. I could entirely see it happening.
Yeah. I think I'm still gonna pick the Commanders. Um like I do understand your point, and that's why this is a difficult pick for me. But I think that Jane Daniels is just gonna be able, like if he plays, I think he's gonna be able to do enough.
Okay, fair. Atlanta at Carolina.
Falcons.
I also have the Falcons winning, but I have this as my against the spread upset alert.
Okay.
The spread is currently 5.5. I feel like the offense for Atlanta has looked
Are you looking at FanDuel? Because on FanDuel they have it as 4.5.
I set this line I picked this afternoon, and I promised the line was 5.5. It might have narrowed,
Sound good.
so I might be getting
Sounds good.
value there. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just think this is one of those things. It's a divisional game. It's at Carolina. The Panthers' offense has looked sluggish. I easily could see not Bryce Young looking great, but like he could throw for 200 yards and a couple touchdown. And then Bijan just has an off game where instead of running for 150 yards like he does every game, he only runs for like 100 yards. So
Yeah.
Atlanta wins, Carolina covers.
I just want to say that right now that Tampa Bay is in the red zone with 42 seconds left.
I have the game live streaming. Don't worry.
Dude, they need to pull this off.
I hate rooting
game.
against Tampa Bay, but I have to. Houston at Jacksonville.
This is where I have the Texans winning.
Okay.
As soon as the divisional games, like this is where I think they'll be able to take over. It's one of those things where it's like if that offense made as many mistakes as they did against the Bengals defense, like imagine going against the Texans.
I have Jacksonville.
Oh, okay.
I think that I still just am concerned about what the potential of that offensive line is. Like, what's its ceiling game to game, which is weird to use that term with an offensive line, but like realistically, what's the best that they could play? And we'll have to look at the film, but
13 seconds left. The ball is on Houston 2-yard
line. The problem is I also just think that Jacksonville's kind of actually good this year. And they gave one away against Cincinnati, and I think that they will be angry.
Yeah, I understand. Part of the reason why I am picking the Texans is because I think that they showed a lot in this current game that they're playing with their ability of their offensive line, really just like their play calling to bail out the offensive line. And so like when I'm looking at it, I believe Tampa Bay has 3 sacks this game.
Really what I'm more concerned about this game, and this is a very scattered of what I've seen, if between the two teams, I would say if Tampa Bay doesn't pull it off, they lost this game. That offense has not looked good to start the season.
Yeah, I would agree. Next game.
Denver at the Los Angeles Chargers. This is I know this you have to give a pick, Adam.
I'm gonna, you know what? No, I'm sticking with my preseason. Right?
Touchdown Buccaneers.
If this guy misses the extra point,
it doesn't matter. They were only down by 5.
You're right.
Because they went for 2 and they failed. 6 seconds left in the game. It's over, barring a miracle. So I'm just going to admit, maybe you should not be allowed to do this. I'm just going to go ahead and give you the 5 points. You now have 29 points to my 19.
Should I become a professional sports gambler?
You should. You should.
Because I'm kind of dude. If the Rams win, I'm gonna look like a genius.
Oh! I should say I also picked the Buccaneers in this game, so it's actually 29-20. So
okay, but just ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching at home, this is the impact of upset alerts.
Yes, it is,
and getting it right.
But get back to it and make a pick. Pick the Chargers.
I'm picking the Broncos.
Ooh, alrighty.
I'm just, like I have the lead.
I'm done.
This is my wild pick for the week. This is my crazy little pick for the week.
The battle between these two AFC West teams that I despise, but I have, due to take integrity, more loyalty to the Chargers. LA wins.
That's exactly why I'm picking the Broncos.
Exactly, yeah. New Orleans at Seattle. Do we continue the trend?
Yes. Seattle. Maybe the Saints will have another, great week and really maximize their ceiling and lead to a 0-3 start to the
season. Dallas at Chicago. This gave me sneaky bad vibes for Dallas. I picked Dallas. It gave me sneaky bad vibes.
I'm picking Dallas too, but this just feels like a Cowboys
I,
game they
I
would
I
lose.
was really close to making this my upset alert outright win in an
Like,
attempt
it
at a
just
big point
feels
swing.
like a classic, like, we done boys, we just won in overtime, Brandon Aubrey, and then immediately lose to the team that just got mollywopped and 52 points on.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's exactly what I've been thinking. And yet I still pick Dallas, which I don't know whether that says more about not trusting my vibes radar or just like how rough I think this season could get for
Yeah,
Chicago.
I'm with you. All right,
Arizona
next game.
at San Francisco, an early massive game for that
Yeah,
division.
yeah. I'm going Arizona with this one.
See, I don't like that you're hopping on the bandwagon. I know why, because Mac Jones is playing, but I also
That's
have
exactly why.
Arizona.
It's one of those things where it's like I definitely am like uh oh, by the way, it's up in Tampa Bay just ended it.
Yeah, it's official,
Um
man.
let's go, dude. I've never been more back. Anyway, let me just collect myself for a second. Yeah, I don't like Mac Jones. I think Arizona has enough offensively. Give me Arizona.
I know I do like how you didn't even like, oh, I don't think Mac Jones is that good. You just don't like Mac Jones.
I just don't think he's. I don't like him. To be clear, I think he's a dirty player.
Probably true. Well, not probably. It is true. Kansas
It's
City
100% true.
at the New York Giants.
Kansas City. This
Kansas
is
City.
this, and after when I picked the Eagles last week, if you remember what I said,
Uh-huh.
my whole point, which I was kind of wrong because the reason I picked Philadelphia is because, and we didn't even really talk about this that much, but this is where I'll kind of give my Kansas City Chiefs loves and what I think about them after week 2. Um, the reason I picked Philadelphia is because I thought that the vibes were just so bad. And like the way I described the defense was just sad looking in week 1. They totally got their mojo back.
Yes.
And so, this vision that I've created of like the Chiefs starting off and then like kind of really making a comeback, ending the season, 13-4, 12-5. That's kind of what I think is going to take place. And I think it's going to start with the Giants.
Okay. And then a pretty fantastic Monday Night Football game, Detroit at
Yeah.
Baltimore.
Yeah. So this one, I definitely think, this is, I think, tougher than a lot of people, at
I
least in
do
my
want to say,
mind, than
I
a lot of people would
believe
think.
this is Baltimore's home opener. Because the Browns
Yeah.
game was at
Well,
Cleveland.
yeah.
So this
Yeah.
that I mean, home openers like delayed into a season, I do give a decent edge if it's like a tough matchup, just because that crowd is
Yeah.
ravenous to watch their
But
team.
also, it's one of those things where the reason why I think it's tough is because I think the likelihood, like basically the way I envision this game is I think that there's only 2 situations that the Lions win a close game or the Ravens destroy them from the get-go. And so the question is like, which is more likely in my mind? And I think it's more likely that the Ravens just kind of crush them.
Yeah, I mostly agree with that vision. Yep. I have Baltimore. So we were lined up on quite a lot this week, not entirely, but
There's a lot of games that like are pretty clear.
yes. I mean, there are some, obviously, we disagree on New England, Pittsburgh, on Las Vegas and Washington, Houston, Jacksonville. So there are some one, and
LA, Philly.
LA, Philly. So we actually had quite a
Similar.
lot of diversity
Yeah,
of thought.
it's good. It's
Well,
good.
Adam, now that we've picked our game 3 slate, we're going to sign off and go watch more NFL football, Los Angeles Chargers and
Let's
Raiders.
freaking go, dude.
We've never been more back. Give me a player whose highlights that the listeners at home should watch.
Here's what the listeners at home should watch. Jake Browning, high school highlights.
Ooh.
Arguably the greatest high school quarterback ever. I think he has the record for the most amount of yards in high school.
Jake the Snake Browning.
Let's freaking go, dude.
It's a great
dude,
pick.
And Jake Browning we trust. I'm optimistic about it. Either way, if you like what you hear, if you like the grind, I'm over here on vacation talking ball with Jonathan. Give us a like, give us a follow, rate us. I feel like we've kind of proven how smart we are so far in the first 2 weeks.
100%.
If you disagree with us, let us know and we'll tell you why you're wrong. If you agree with us, let us know and we'll glaze you like you glaze us.
Bye, and goodbye,
that,
folks.
see ya.